Hello everyone, my name is Brandon Cleary and welcome to my week 4 presentation on systems theory. This week I will be discussing the natural systems perspective, structural functional perspective, and open systems perspective from the Tompkins book. Based on my readings, the natural systems perspective is essentially viewing an organization as a living organism, as described by Tompkins in the organizational theory book between the pages 183 and 210. The natural systems react to internal changes within an organization and focus on the needs of those parts within the organization. In an article by Rob Kling and Tom Jewett called "The Social Design of Work Life Within Computers and Networks: An Open Natural System Perspective," it compares the internal connections and parts of a computer to a natural system perspective, and can be seen as quote unquote a living organism trying to survive as computers regulate their internal parts so that they're performing at their optimal efficiency. If an internal part isn't functioning properly, then the whole system doesn't work. While my task force will have internal parts working towards one goal, not all of them will be absolutely essential, as is one of the requirements of a natural system. My task force is multiple government policing agencies catching drug traffickers. So while much of the work is being done inside the system, there will be some external events that affect it, and not all the pieces are exactly going to be required. The structural functional perspective, which is pages 211 to 238, based on my readings, and Merton borrowed from the anthropology field, in which a system would have varying degrees of integration and would function differently depending on the social interaction between the parts of the system. And each system, while they may have similar parts, would ultimately always be slightly different. In addition, while in a natural system every piece is necessary in order for the system to function, a structural functional organization would not always have necessary parts. Some may not always be needed. I found an article called "Understanding Structural Functional Relationships in the Human Brain, a Large-Scale Network Perspective." I can't pronounce the authors, but I left them on the screen for you. Basically, this article ultimately connects Merton's structural functional theory to how a brain works. All parts are working towards a goal, keeping the body alive. Some are necessary, some are not, but each brain varies from one another due to the characteristics of its internal parts. I believe this type of system would likely reflect my task force the best, as most of my tasks will be internal to the task force, although some will be external, but not all are necessary to function, and some will be. For an open systems perspective, which is pages 239 to 269 of the Tompkins book, it can be described as a system which is dependent on only external influences for survival. In this type of system, the end goal may not always be predetermined. I found a peer-reviewed article called "Open Systems Theory for Arts and Cultural Organizations, Linking Structure and Performance" by Yuha Jung and Neville Zakaria. Essentially, this article details how an open system theory relates and is fitting for an arts and cultural nonprofit organization. The outcome of the research or services provided by the nonprofit is directly affected by the amount of funds it is able to receive from donors or fundraising. The amount of funds will directly impact what the nonprofit is able to provide. This open systems theory can also be a relevant approach to my drug trafficking task force, As with all government agencies, they operate on a budget provided by the government. So those funds may directly impact how much my task force is able to uh, provide its services, being catching drug traffickers, with the funds at hand. And that will directly impact the success of my task force. And that is the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening.